You wouldn't be able to do this without Maya, would you?
What the fuck? You know, I can't even log into my phone without her. I'll just do it again. Hang on a minute. Um,
don't be shit this time. Do it proper.
I'll try not to be shit. I'll try not to be shit. Don't
Yeah, I'll
normally.
get you. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you pumped up. Have another swig of your Guinness. That's what Warner says to me these days. It's a
Cheers.
nice intro, though. I didn't.
Cheers.
I didn't know you were my friend. I didn't know. I didn't know I was your friend.
Well, I have to say that because you've
That's nice. That's nice to know, isn't it? That's nice to know. Go on, get into it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Stay on Your Bike podcast. This week's guest is a good friend of mine. I'm really excited to chat to him about all things two-wheeled. He's a really good two-wheel bike steerer, whether it's a mountain bike, um, maybe not a dirt jump bike, but mountain bikes, and a very good motorcyclist. But anyway, without further ado, welcome onto the podcast, Paul Bolton. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, you're definitely right with the sort of dirt jumps, and I'm definitely better at getting traction when I'm on the ground. There's not much I can do when I'm in the air, and I don't really like it too much, especially these days.
Well, no, when I was saying that, it just popped into my mind. I remember when I first met you, and you told me I think you'd had a bad accident and a couple on your dirt jump bike or something. So I remembered that. But hey, you're a lot better at jumping on a bicycle than I am at riding a motorbike. So I don't think I've got anything to mock you about. Um, but anyway, obviously for people that don't know you on the podcast, I'm sure most people will, but you're mainly a motorcycle rider, but a really good mountain bike rider as well. Just give us a little bit of insight, first of all. We won't go on for, you don't need to go on with everything, but how did you first get into riding bikes? Did it start with motorbikes? Did it start with push bikes? How did it, get to the point where you were, one of the best hard enduro motorcycle riders in the world?
Well, yeah, it started being a kid, 5 years old, trials bike, but we didn't even. I don't even think we really knew that we were doing trials at the time. It was more a question of just field bikes with my dad at the weekends with my brother. Yeah, I've got a younger brother. He was pretty handy as well. Sad case, he went to football, but there you go. Things happen, don't they? And yeah, and then slowly just did ended up being into British Championship trials and really trying to sort of didn't really know like how good I was at that time. I just compared myself to the other kids who were just they were winning, but I was. If there was a hard section in the trial, there was only one clean, and that'd be mine. But then flip it over, and the easiest section there'd only be one five, and that'd be mine as well. So it was I could do the hard stuff, but couldn't concentrate well enough. And then, long and short of it was, some friends got some dirt bikes, some motocross bikes, some CR125s, and we just went playing up on the hills, out and about. And I went with my trials bike at the time, and then I had a go on one of these CR125. I was like, that is mega. I need to have a go at that. And then it happened a bit longer, and then I sort of saved up a bit of money, borrowed a bit of money off mum and dad, and then managed to go and get a 98 YZ 250. And then me and a few friends from my area were just sort of we were doing hard enduro, and we didn't really know we were doing hard enduro, and it was already existing in Erzberg, and everything was evolving behind the scenes. We didn't even know it was there. And then yeah, then
How
one
how old is, like, obviously hard enduros, it's a big thing now and it's getting bigger and bigger. I think it's, there's so many people doing it. How when did it first sort of come about as like a, a proper thing, I guess?
yeah, well, Erzberg's been running for 30 years.
Okay.
But then there has been other events before that. There was a French race. Really, probably the Frenchies started it, I would say, properly, because obviously enduro in France is so big, motorbike enduro,
Mhm.
and there was a race called Gilles Lallet Classic. Now I never got to go to that. It kind of just finished just as I was like getting into it, and all these other races kind of all like stemmed, like Romaniac's obviously in the Carpathian Mountains. It's got the hills, it's got the land, it's got everything. everything. And that's a 4 day rally. And then you go to Erzberg, and then that's a 2 to 3, 4 hour race sprint before depending on your level. And then there's other types of hard enduros as well, with multi-lap ones. And all these have kind of spined off the back of this Gilles Lillet Classic, I would say. And it's hardcore, but it kind of tests you on every part of the discipline of riding on two wheels.
Yeah, and so for people that aren't as clued up on the motorbike stuff, like I'm nowhere near clued up enough on it.
Yeah, but you follow it a lot still, don't you? Though.
Yeah, I follow it, and I've recently got back into riding. I love riding it, but there's so many different disciplines to even motorbike enduro. You've got the G,
Mm-hmm.
you've got hare and hound stuff. I think in America that they call the GNCCs. There's the hard enduro series. There's
Yeah, the traditional stuff.
traditional stuff with the time cards in the UK as well. What what's the biggest discipline, Paul? Like, what's the main one, or isn't the one? Is everything just so
As the
diverse
what
for
as the as like the foundation, or the one that
what,
I would
what,
say?
what would you
I'd
say?
say foundation. Foundation's got to be like trials, really. I would say. I know even a lot of the faster sort of motocross lads, or the MX Enduro GP riders, even beat the best beach racer in the world at the moment, Todd Kellett. He does a lot of trials through the winter, and his dad's got a trials background, and I think that underpins a lot of stuff. But then, just because you can ride a trials bike really well and you've got mega throttle control, you obviously stand up a lot with trials. It takes a heck of a lot to learn to sit down in turns and trust the bike and ride a different style, and obviously twist it even when it's braking traction. You're still on the power to straighten things up and things. But yeah, I'd say a good base of trials, a really good knowledge of motocross, being able to relax around a motocross track, and then I think you could go any discipline you wanted within the motor world.
What would you say is the most the biggest participation sport out of all the different ones? Obviously, like Hare and Hounds is, the fast boys are super fast, but it's like that's like an event that someone like myself can go and do and get around pretty, easily. Whereas
Yeah,
if I went to try and do a super hard enduro, like back when I first met you, one of the first events I ever did was the tough one, and I know like
yeah,
tough one isn't difficult for you guys, but that was a pretty big challenge for me. Not coming from a trials motorbike background, I didn't have any of the kind of skills you need for that. So, what do you think is the biggest sort of participation sport in enduro at the moment?
I would probably say enduro classic, sort of the enduro GP side, and then as events, I would say certainly in enduro, but motocross is still huge.
Yeah.
Motocross is still huge, and there's lots of events on weekly. But I would say the biggest one, without going to events, for people going having fun out in the hills at the moment, is hard enduro,
Yeah.
because everybody's looking to go out. They're looking at the friends, maybe they loop the bike and getting a good video for their friends and hold them to ransom to it for a long time, and just generally just having a good laugh. And the good thing about hard enduro is you can sort of go anywhere and you can kind of make something up from nothing. And yeah, anybody loves a good hill climb, right?
Yeah, definitely. Gets the adrenaline up, gets the excitement going. And yeah, it's real good fun. And what? Obviously, going back 10 years when kind of first met you, or a few years before that, you were going hard at. I'd come out riding with you a few times, and you were going hard at the super enduro training. We'd go up to
Yeah,
Corrie, and you had a circuit there, and you had a place behind there where you were just doing fast laps. Obviously, super enduro is so good for the TV because you can see it all like
yeah,
um,
yeah.
you're involved now with the commentary and all the other stuff you do with that. Is that growing and growing, would you say, or is that just too difficult for most people to do?
I think that is a little bit of its problem to grow, and obviously you need an arena, you need a certain way of training for it. But that said, it's probably one of the most exciting things to watch right now at the moment. You know, they've got 3 races in the evening. There's not just 3 races, but 3 races of the main class, and so that's 3 gate drops, and then there's a super pole before that as well. And yeah, it's just super exciting from the moment you get to the arena. They're all trying to put a hot lap in. They're all trying to get into the Super Bowl, and it's a mad day, and then into the night. And with the introduction of the youth class this year, sort of from 14, I'm pretty sure it's 14. That's fantastic. 125s screaming around there in the indoor track, and yeah, that's a mega asset for the future as well. But yeah, it's a bit hard to get into, and it's very specialist. But right now, it's in a mega place because the guys are doing a good job of promoting it.
Yeah, yeah. And anything where you can hold it in the evening where people can come and watch and have a beer,
Yeah,
have a night out. It's always good,
yeah,
isn't it? You know?
yeah. It's good for the sponsors. It's really good for the sponsors of in the moto industry and stuff. I've often thought about how they could do it with some e-bike mountain bikes as well. I think that could, with a clever track design, I think that could also possibly work, especially in some of the arenas that we've been to where we've climbed up into the sort of upper terraces of the arena,
Yeah.
and then you could make some sort of in run then to do some jumps or whatever. And yeah, I think it would be. Yeah, it's good. I think it's got some legs for the future.
Yeah. I mean, I've mentioned to a few people, but since we've got e-bikes, I don't know why there isn't an e-bike slalom like championship,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
It's
obviously
easy to go, get back up, and start again. And yeah,
you don't need a shuttle, you don't need to push your bike up, so then
yeah,
time, you can be straight back up on an e-bike and do your next run.
yeah. The racing's racing as well, isn't it? It doesn't matter. Just yeah, there's all makes the infrastructure around the racing so much easier,
Yeah.
and the racing will still be the racing, won't it? So
And
yeah,
so with, obviously, I'll just take it back a little bit to when I started downhill mountain biking in the late 90s. Um, obviously it was quite a new sport back then. I got into it a little bit later on. Like Warner and Petey and them guys have been doing it from the kind of early and mid 90s. But what I noticed was people who were good at it had come from different backgrounds.
yeah.
You mentioned Todd Kellett earlier. His dad. I was actually on a team with his dad. Uh,
No way.
yeah, the second year I raced Elite, we rode for a little UK program. It was called Intense Kawasaki. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
and me and Nibs and Steve Jones from GmbN were on it, and a young guy from the northeast was on the team. And yeah, Nibs was, I knew he'd come from a motorcycle background, but I'd never really followed motorcycles that much.
yeah.
So I didn't know, how good he was at that. And then obviously, I think Steve Jones had come from some trials background. Mick Extance was racing, obviously young.
Was it?
Yeah, Mick was.
Wow.
So they were all a bit older than me, but so I
Yeah.
was like racing elite, and those guys were in the masters category, uh,
Uh-huh.
over 30s, but they were like top performers in the masters category. Um, but yeah, I didn't know how big and how successful they'd actually been because I hadn't really followed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and then later on, I went to one of Mick's schools in North Wales. I took the race team at the time that I was running. We all went there, and Mick did a day out with us and stuff, which was amazing. Uh,
Yeah, he's got a hell of a bit of land, hasn't he, up there?
yeah, but what I was going to say was, in mountain biking, there was people that had just sort of were good at mountain biking. They'd come from cross country racing and then evolved into downhill. There was trials bike riders, obviously motorbike enduro riders, motocross riders, BMX riders. Um, for hard enduro and super enduro, is there anyone that's come in that hasn't had a high trials background? Is it just not possible, do you think?
Yeah, no, there is. Wade Young and the Teo Kabachev, they've not had a trials background at all. Yeah, obviously Teo grown up in Bulgaria and Wade in South Africa, and them sports aren't that big in them countries. So yeah, Wade's come from just like literally being a good fast rider, well, a very good fast rider, and then he's evolved and he's got his unique style of making he bulldogs his way through some stuff,
Yeah.
but he's getting where he needs to be. And I think if he could have just had a bit more finesse with some stuff,
Yeah.
then he could have been pretty untouchable as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
And and so, obviously, I would imagine, you know, well, so let's talk a little bit about, because you've just been to Erzberg, and
yeah,
I watched all the highlights of that, and I saw you on the side of the track, and you're filming, and get
yeah,
a little bit about your role there, and then how um, how you become, you know, what kind of riders can win Erzberg, like what's
yeah,
the background you need for that?
yeah. Well, now obviously I'm a retired sort of thing from racing at the highest level. Um, just really because of Red Bull had been pushing me for quite a while. They wanted me to do this stuff. I'd already done the POVs on even qualifying runs, in
Yeah,
World Championship races. I used to do them
I
in the
remember that.
qualifying run itself.
Yeah,
And then they obviously wanted me to do this stuff. They wanted me to make this transition. I'd, I'd had a third place at Romaniacs in
yeah,
2017, which was probably I'd say the highlight of my riding,
uh-huh.
really, just because there's so much going on. But anyway, then Red Bull got me to do the POV stuff more and more, and they wanted me to be a commentator, wanted me to do other things as well. And the main thing was to follow the guys. So following them behind with the GoPro on, and then getting off, giving some detailed track analysis at the side of the track, live kind of thing, and in the thick of it. And it's worked really well, and people
Yes.
people are enjoying it. It's another dynamic to the sport.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about Erzberg, obviously fresh from the Iron Giant itself, the most rounded rider, Manny Littenbeckler, he obviously killed it this year. I saw him literally raise the bar of hard enduro in this race. I feel like in that race, it was an outstanding performance, and it was a new level that if you want to win there, then that's where you're going to have to ride at, you know. And he's obviously got a heck of a lot of different sporting backgrounds. I'll touch on them in a minute, but he's also got a hell of a lot of respect in the mountain bike world because he's close friends with quite a few big name, big hitters, and he's just such a down to earth guy, and he is passionate about everything he does. And the number one thing he's passionate for is mountain biking. And obviously, my biggest thing at the moment is mountain biking. Everybody thinks we just love moto, and it's like, no, mountain biking, a bit more peaceful, etc. But yeah, jumping into what Manny, the tools that Manny has in his toolbox, he's literally, he's an absolutely tremendous skier, like out in the, sort of backcountry, if you will, free ride skier. He's a fantastic downhill mountain biker, fantastic enduro mountain bike rider. He's got the trials background. He's bloody good on a motocross track, on a motocross bike. And he's obviously absolutely the best hill climber I know in hard enduro.
Really?
So with all that, and his dad, who I used to race against, it's a massive recipe for a big problem for all the other riders, and that's what he is.
Yes. Tell us, a little bit about the difference, because even I don't know this, and I follow it, quite a lot. But obviously, Billy's, to me, watching the Super Enduro, Billy's another level to
Yeah,
any in the world. No disrespect to anybody else there, because there's some really good young guys coming through, and
yeah, there is.
Obviously, Johnny's still really amazing at it, but Billy's like another level, like more than in most other sports that I watch. He seems to be just that much better than everybody else. And the stuff that Billy does on his bike, in his obviously you see a lot of Billy because he's got a good YouTube channel and he's
Yeah,
current on what he does. And because he's such a big, strong guy with so much skills on the bike, it just looks like he can do things that nobody else can do. Um, whereas Manny, I guess, is Manny. When I was watching Erzberg, he's just very smooth and doesn't use any energy. He kind of reminds me of some mountain bikers that don't look that fast, but they get to the end of the run and their times are faster than other people
yeah,
like sketchier. Um, Obviously, Billy must have some better skills than Manny in some areas, and then obviously vice versa. Could you explain a little bit about that?
yeah. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head with Billy. He's just he's a unique rider. You get these riders that arrive every sort of few years, and somebody's so special. And yeah, but that is Billy. But with Billy comes a big. It's like it's absolutely wild and it works, or it's wild and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of years, I've seen him changing really a lot with his riding. He can almost control what he needs to do, way more than he used to do. Like the last round in Hispania, coming back from injury, Hispania in Spain, Manny was a little bit injured, but Billy still took it to him and put on probably the hard enduro performance of Billy's career. Yeah, it was amazing to watch, and he controlled everything. But then jump Billy into super enduro indoors, and he can do. There'll be one obstacle that like everybody's a bit like, whoa, is it possible? Is it not? Or Billy might do it. That's kind of the attitude. And you can see him sometimes before the race. Everybody thinks that he's just got it under control and everything because he's done it so many times. But it still means so much to him, and he gets so nervous before it that he's spewing up and things like that before the races. So yeah,
You wouldn't think that. You'd just think if you were that
exactly.
good, you'd just think, is this is going to be easy?
Yeah, but he's got the big pressure of he's got to do that key feature because everybody's watching him to do it, and I think he needs to get it off his chest, or he needs to tick it off. And but yeah, then he's got the target on his back, but then young Ashton Brightmore is probably the next hottest topic coming through. He's just suffering with a knee injury at the minute. I think he's done his ACL. So I mean, he's super young. So it'll get, and they've decided not to sort of limp on with it and then make it worse and then try to get surgery. They've just like closed the door. Let's get surgery. Let's come back strong. And I think that's the best way, especially at that age. So we'll see him hopefully.
Both him and his brother are really
Yeah,
good.
and his brother. Yeah, his brother Mitch should have been third on the podium at Erzberg, but just got pipped by the guy from Bulgaria, Teo.
Yeah.
So no, but then jumping on like you said about Manny, he has just got the full package. He's got like the calmness of like the older guy Graham Jarvis, who a lot of people for sure will have known. Um, yeah, they've got the calmness of him, but then when Manny really needs to go, he can go as well. Like he can go as hard as anybody. Almost comparable to Billy on a super enduro track, but in the wild. So Manny can. I saw him at Erzberg this time, and all the easy sections between. I mean, I'd just taken a shortcut, waited for a while, and then I was fresh as a daisy. He's done 2 hours on the bike, or an hour and 40 minutes on the bike, and I jump on the back of him, and I couldn't keep up with him at all. I was like, he was gone, and this is like at 1 hour 40 in the race or something around there, and it was an easy bit to keep up with him as well, but he was just literally on a mission. So yeah, but if you want to compare them two, because they are the topic at the moment, for Billy to beat Manny outdoors, yeah, Billy has to figure something out with his hill climbing, or he's hitting things once and getting up.
Yeah.
and going, because I saw Billy taking, don't forget this stuff. If you've never seen Erzberg in real life, you should see how big some of this stuff is. It's huge.
It looks
But the
huge on the TV, so it's got to be insane.
but the dirt is so unique out there. It's obviously got quite a lot of gravel in it, so you get a lot more grip. If you tried to do that with how wet it was in North Wales, you'd be going home in an ambulance. You knew, or your bike could be going in an ambulance.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Billy can figure out these hill climbs and hitting things first time and getting up them first time, then Manny's in trouble.
Right.
Because if they went at it, I think Billy is the more natural talent, but Manny is more cool, calm, collective, and more precise with his training and the way he approaches an event as well, in like a professionalism way.
Yeah. Okay. And so just touching on the super enduro, why doesn't Manny do that? Would he not be able to compete with Billy at that level?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of COVID and stuff like that, when we got back into the swing of things with super enduro, Manny and Billy had actually been training together for quite a while, and they come out and they were like toe to toe. Manny had have a go at Billy, Billy had have a go at Manny. Billy was still the more dominant, but yeah, if Manny wants to train for it, then he's more than capable to do so. But there's a lot on the line, and I think Manny's just worked it out in his head that he likes his winter as well with his skiing, so he's worked it out that he wants to just do the outdoor stuff, and then he wants to just leave the indoor stuff and have a winter and enjoy some of his friends in an off season kind of thing, where Billy will go on his bike every single day still and do a full outdoor season and a full indoor season without thinking about it.
And I mean, obviously, he's not that old, Billy, and he does look like he just loves it. Like so I see in some mountain bikers, they just love it.
Yeah,
Some mountain bikers or athletes come across as, they're doing it it's because it's their job and they're super professional. But other people just seem to love doing what they're doing as well, and that
yeah.
comes across with Billy. I don't know if that's the case.
No, 100% it shines out. I mean, the pressures of going to do things, when you obviously want to go and do something different, but the job is the job and you're going to go and do that, then I think that still probably grates at them, like anything else. But when I was in Erzberg and I saw the start, I went off with them in the start, and then I was in the dust cloud, so I just had to get to where I wanted to meet up with the guys again, take a shortcut, get out of the way. And then I met Billy at the top of Waterpipe, which is the first checkpoint.
Right.
And he come past me like a scolded cat. I was just waiting at the side of the track, and he come past me like a scolded cat. And then he gave me the massivest look back ever, just to say, "Yeah, baby, I've got the whole shot." Because that's a big thing in itself. And at that point, I was like, "Wow." Manny was in about third or fourth, and I was like, all right, because I'd said Billy was going to take it this time, but I just think
Win the whole thing, did you?
Yeah, I did. I really thought he was going to. Yeah, my top three for this year's Erzberg were Billy, Manny, and then Tristan Hart. And I just think that Manny's just so well prepared, so well trained off the bike. And yeah, I kind of sometimes, maybe with like a lot less talent, but I compare Billy to myself sometimes, that he's got the talent to do it. He's got the desire to do it, but actually he's just needs to do some other stuff to try to make the overall picture well. Because I didn't want to go to the gym or anything like that. I just found it so boring. And that's obviously when I was meeting you, Nige, and found the mountain bike. I'd obviously always loved mountain biking, but then when we started going riding, then actually we were riding properly on normal bikes, and obviously I got fitter as well, and then it kind of just all snowballed a bit more. So yeah, I think Billy needs to go and do some other stuff off the bike and then get that kind of fitness right up there. But I totally understand why he doesn't want to do it as well.
I mean, mountain biking, downhill racing now from when I was doing it, and I only did it for quite a short period, really. But it's evolved so much now. Like, even people that aren't racing World Cups and on a big team go to the gym. They have a training program that
Yeah,
you might pay for or whatever, or get off. You know,
there's kids in motocross at the moment doing it. They're paying for these kids to have days off school and going training in the week. And like guys, it's not red. They're not ready yet. But
well,
yeah,
it's kind of like become, because there's so much social media and everybody
yeah,
sees what else is doing now, and people put all that stuff on social media. Everyone sort of thinks that's what you need to be doing. But is like hard enduro, and is that still a little bit behind in it, would you say, for the athletes? Because obviously, all the top downhillers now, they go into the gym, they've got nutritionalists, they've, they're doing the whole thing. They're doing all the mad stretches before they do the race run. We just used to sit at the top of the hill and do a few laps and a couple of wheelies and then set off. It's a
yeah,
whole game now.
yeah. No, hard enduros. A lot of the riders are still are all on the training, and I think sometimes you need that. You need that in the off season for sure, if you can, if that's the way you want to do stuff. But I also think you've got to have some fun, because
Yeah,
if you're not smiling,
yeah,
you're not relaxed. You don't want to be there. You're hating what you're doing, and I think there's such a balance of being prepared, fitness and mentally, and part of that needs to be let your hair down, have some fun, and then be prepared. And I think that's what, if I'm just obviously going to talk about hard enduro again, and that's probably where Manny understands what he needs to do, because he goes hard when he goes to a party or whatever. He goes hard at it, but he also goes hard with his training to get prepared for the racing. And I think it's just fitting in a balance and a structure that works for you.
yeah. Everyone's different. Obviously, you're looking at Billy. He probably needs to do. He doesn't need to do as much strength training as some other people because he's so
Yeah,
naturally strong. But like,
yeah,
it's your cardio, your fitness that you need for such a big, long, difficult event like Erzberg is something that you could work on as well.
yeah. Well, we're coming up to the next big one is Romaniacs, and that's another. That's the other thing. It's so the approach to Erzberg is completely different to Romaniacs, because Erzberg, you've got a 4 hour time limit to finish the course, and the boys are doing it in just 2.5 hours. The first guys, but then you go to Romaniacs, and then that's a 4 day race, 100 miles per day roughly, all off road. With a bit of a lunch stop in the middle, for 15 minutes rest per day. So, and everything's blind as well.
Right.
So you can't walk anything. It's obviously GPS and marked with tape, but completely different approach. I would say it's like doing something, going from almost like a downhill race
Yeah.
to then going to do a cross country event.
Okay. Right.
I'd say they're almost, as in, the downhill race would be Erzberg,
Yeah.
and then the cross country race would be Romaniacs.
Or like,
I'd say it's that different.
or like maybe doing one of those 5-7 day trans enduro
Yeah,
races,
yeah,
something like
yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
that.
But
Okay. And what, obviously, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. What for you, because you've done a lot of these events, what do you think's the most challenging and hardest one of the whole lot?
out of the hard enduros,
Yeah.
Romaniacs has got to be the hardest. Yeah, just for the day on day. I mean, you go out day one, and no matter how much training you've been doing, I used to go to Romania to a friend's place. He's actually just built a bike park, Kaylee Gradishti, in Romania, near Brasov. I used to go to his place, and I'd ride from his place all the time. It was 1,000 meters altitude, and we'd go out into the mountains up to 2,000 meters. And do a ride in the morning, mountain bike ride in the afternoon, and then that was my sort of 3 weeks before Romaniacs, and it was just to beat your body up every day to get it used to it, because no matter how much you've done in the gym, your hands still need to be ready for it. Your arse to be ready for it. Trust me, it's never ready. And yeah, day one of Romania, actually, no matter how prepared you are, you finish the day and you're like, holy shit, I can't go tomorrow. No chance. Yeah. And you wake up tomorrow, you put your hands on the handlebars and you're like, I can't carry on like this. That hurts. That's too much. Then you sit down, you remember your arse hurts again from the day before. And then you finish day two and you have your pasta at the end or whatever, and at the pasta truck. And then you get to day three and you just put your hands on the handlebars and you go, fuck it, that's how it is. And then you sit down, you go out and you go, right, let's carry on. And then you finish day three and you're at day four, and then day four's finished and you've done it. Oh, that's how it rolls.
So that trophy you've got in your house from there means a lot, that one.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does. Third place was there in 17. Fittest I've ever been in my life. Don't know what I did different, but
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And is obviously, the World Series, or in hard enduro, they're all the different hard enduro events lumped into the series, which they're quite different events. Some of them, aren't they, to each other? They're all technically hard, but obviously I was looking at before the season started, and it was pretty close to not having a series, wasn't it, this year?
Yeah, it was. It's unfortunate because we've just been gaining some really good momentum. The old series promoters were doing a good job. They were listening to the riders what they could. They were changing what they could, and it seemed like it was all going a little bit in the right direction. And then obviously when KTM went bump and caused that big problem there, KTM was obviously sponsoring the championship for getting the people around, and it was Sherco obviously said it was a KTM sort of championship, but the first year when I was in it in 18 in the FIM championship, then actually Wade Young could have probably won the championship, but Sherco refused to send him to a beach race, and then they didn't get to win it. So I still don't know how they can say it was a KTM race series when they had the chance to win it. But no, coming into this year, after a few years of a few sort of just tweaks here and there, and everybody seemed to be in a reasonable place with the whole championship. And it sort of, KTM went bump, and then we were looking for a new promoter, and a couple of the riders went for it. And then Wade Young's friend kind of got it, who is actually the promoter of the Roof of Africa. Oh, yeah. Ross and a company there, they've got the series for the next year, and I know for a year anyway. And hopefully it goes well, because in sport, these sports need momentum, and it's good that somebody stepped in last minute to sort of take it forward and try to pull something together last minute. And obviously they're a big challenge to do that. But yeah, the events are all there. They have moved to some different events this year. And my role with Red Bull, we've only going to do 3 races. So it's Erzberg, Romaniacs, and Outliers in Canada. Right. And the championships then go into other races that it's not been to before. So Red Bull wanted to step back, let the new race series promoter come in, and then see where it went. And then hopefully come 26, everything's gone well in 25. Red Bull are going to jump in and follow again and do everything that we've been doing in the sort of past few years. So,
and so how many events is there going to be as part of the championship this year then?
This year I think it's 7. I've not looked at it too closely because I wasn't going to them, and I've just got a house as well, so I give me a chance to get some decorating done. Yeah. And have a bit of downtime because it's been a hectic last few years that I've enjoyed loads. But usually there's 7 rounds in the series, and that's what it's been the last couple of years. And it would be. There's a lot of talk now with what a championship should look like, because you've said about the different events. You know, there's some that there are like short races. There's some super long ones over so many days. So if you compare Getson Rodeo, which is at the end of the season, and a great watch if anybody's in Germany at the end of the season, it's going to be the last one. It's a mega event. If that event is super short, you know, but then Romaniacs is 4 days, but essentially it's the same points for the stop. So it's the same points for Getson it is for a 4 day rally in Romania. So I've suggested the longer rallies should be more points, you know, at least double.
Right.
Or they go individual points, world championship points per day, and then like a you know, the one who wins overall at the race gets extra points.
Yeah.
Something like that, like they do in BSB, where they get into the showdown at the end of it, kind of thing. And then literally just do 3 rallies and 3 shorter races, and then it's, you know, an even number with 3 different styles of events, and that should sort it out, really.
Right, yeah, it makes sense. And how's the obviously there's the all the stuff going on with KTM at the moment. Obviously KTM's gas and Husky as well. Um, how's that all working with all the you know, the sponsorship and stuff, and how is the sponsorship in Moto Enduro? Obviously we know the top supercross and motocross riders, you know, get paid well. I don't know what the depth's like, but what's it like in the enduro scene? Like, would Billy and Manny be on similar salaries to, say, Joseph Garcia, who's winning the enduro GPs? Is it similar, or is one way better than the other? I have no.
No, I've no idea really. I know that them boys do okay with what they're getting. You know, that's about it. But when you think about the sacrifice and the injuries that you can sustain with this sport, you know, and I'm sure it's the same in mountain biking as well. It's not anywhere near enough, is it? And the depth that it goes to, well, I think the top 3 to 4 are maybe making enough money to go and buy a house, and that's you know, just to go and put some money down on a mortgage. And that was always my sort of judgment of, like, if you're actually professional or not, or if you're a privateer. And obviously if you can't go and put a deposit down on a mortgage for a house, then you're still a privateer. And if you can go and afford to get a house and do that, then you're probably a professional. But I only made it possible because Lisa was making it possible. Really, she was so good behind the scenes of organising everything, and it was down to training schools for me. That's what top things up for me. Still doing today, but also a lot of private sponsors that I'd met at different events, or I'd met just, you know, and a guy on a training school said, I can take you back to Erzberg if you want. And I was like, no way, can you? And that meant I could stay at work with my old man, you know, on the trucks, working on the trucks for another couple of days instead of driving to Erzberg, so I could fly in. And yeah, without them kind of sponsors, you know, a lot of motorsport, and probably in the cycle industry as well, it wouldn't happen.
So would you say, even the downhill ride, you know, obviously with mountain biking, you've got loads of different disciplines as well, with cross country, downhill, you know, now, you know, free ride, slope style, you've got, you know, guys that concentrate more on sort of crankworks events even now.
Mm-hmm.
And the sponsorship has sort of, and then obviously, you know, influencers on social media were getting stuff. I guess that's why, you know, Billy does his YouTube channel. It's not just because he loves talking to his camera every day. It's obviously good for his sponsors. He can make a bit of money if it gets you know, popular enough. Are the motorbike enduro riders, are they paid as much as even the downhill riders, or do you not really know?
No, I wouldn't really know. I would say that some of the top downhill mountain bikers are probably paid more. I
No.
would say. I would say, but just that's a pure guess.
And
Just on the way that there seems to be a little bit just in mountain biking. It looks like there's more. Just from me looking personally as a fan, looks like there's a little bit. They're looked after a bit more. I would say, but you never know. It's always good looking from the outside, and it looks glossy and everything. But we know what it's like from the inside out sometimes in the sports. Eh?
yeah, yeah. And so, do you think obviously the top supercross riders and top motocross riders,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure, but they get paid well. They're
Yeah,
not compared to footballers for what they do, and that, like we
but
mentioning.
it only seems to be in America, really. I think
So
there's a few in Europe that are getting paid good,
yeah,
but compared to America, I think America's next level for the Supercross and then obviously the outdoor stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, but look at the season they have.
no, it's insane.
What did Jason Anderson? What would Jason Anderson when he won the Supercross championship? And it was the first time he'd won it, and he literally had to. He wanted to go and do something, and then I can't remember there was something on it, and or I read it somewhere or whatever, and they said, "Well, we better start concentrating now on the outdoors." And he just won the Supercross after all these years, his childhood dream, blah blah blah. And it was like, better start concentrating on the outdoors now. That's the mentality of it, and
We had
yeah,
this season. They had a week off, and then they were into the outdoors. So they finished
yeah,
1 week off, straight into outdoors. Uh,
yeah. Imagine trying to survive. Imagine trying to survive that kind of season just from even not even a big injury, just niggly injuries. You know, nobody's going to go through that season knowing what moto's like, and just motorbikes in general or any sport with two wheels.
yeah,
Um, you're just beat up all the time, aren't you? So not one of them is going to be fit as a fiddle all year.
no way, no way.
Yeah.
And and so is the obviously with um, we'll have to see how downhill goes over the next few years. Now, Warner Brothers are making some big changes, or especially this year. It seems to be going more elitist, so it's
Mm-hmm.
coming harder for uh, you know non-factory riders and younger riders in
Yeah.
you know the younger riders now they're getting picked up even before they go into junior with big teams. There's people like
Yeah.
kind of scouting them from race series around the world. Just as an example, Asa Vermette and Max and
Yeah.
Alren, and they're all on factory teams in the junior category now, and because it's evolving the sport. The younger riders are coming through with more talent than some of the older riders have had because
Yeah.
backgrounds, all the bike parks, the time that the bikes are better. Uh,
Yeah.
we've had they've grown up in a different era where they can have so much time on the bikes,
And
and
information.
yeah, information.
Information on training and not making mistakes in training. Like
Yeah,
I used
and
to go to motocross tracks with knackered mooses on the enduro bike, and I crashed my brains out. And if I had someone around me who would have known something, just said, "Hey, Paul, just put some tubes in there. You'll be way safer." Oh, right, thanks.
yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, the some of these young kids that aren't even junior, they're getting like the support that the top World Cup elite riders are getting because they're on the
Yeah,
program because those programs are looking for the next person, to move into the top ranks. But um, is is hard enduro similar? Is there a lot of younger kids that are striving to become like Billy and Manny and yourself, or or
yeah,
where?
yeah. There's definitely a healthy youth categories, but I think with moto, it's so hard to train for because obviously when you're that young, you need a van, don't you? So you need somebody to take you, and I think that's where trials probably would come in if you had some land nearby, not even your land or whatever, you could go and use it somehow. that would help a little bit. But
Yeah,
I think that's where mountain biking, you can go wheelie around in the street, can't you, and have fun and
yeah,
learn a bit here and there. Yeah,
yeah. And yeah, that's a fair point. But is there a kids, because there's kids in mountain biking. I think that, you know, um, they're actually like that's what they think they're gonna be a professional mountain biker as they
yeah.
get older. Is that happening in moto enduro as well, or not?
Yeah, there's a couple of kids that I see on social media that have definitely got the potential to be the next big things. Um, but with kids, they've got so much to get through, so many temptations to miss out on, and you can never say anything. And that's why I was referred to the kids going to the motocross tracks during the week, um, and having trainers and this and that. The kids have got to have a childhood as well. They've got to go to the cinema. They've got to go and get a bird. They've got to go and do this stuff. And you've got to be a kid as well, because you're a long time a professional rider if you do make it, aren't you? Then
Yeah,
if you're coming in at 17 and you're already a professional, then you're probably going to rebel that you've never had a childhood.
yeah, yeah,
So I think people have got to tread carefully with that kind of stuff, and otherwise you're just going to burn these little souls out at the end of it.
yeah, yeah. And explain a little bit about the bike styles. You know, I was involved in mountain biking a lot more heavily. So, but where I live now, you see so many people coming here to ride at the weekends, recreational riders that a lot of people don't even bother going to races. Some people
Yeah.
don't. Um, but I've noticed in when I go motorbiking, I went to a practice day at Helmsley a couple of months ago, and
Hmm.
and then some of the events I've done back, maybe 10 years ago, just racing in the over 40s or whatever it was. It's insane how much some people spend on the bikes. They've
Yeah.
not just got, I had a secondhand KTM XC that I was doing it on. Me, I didn't know much about them, still don't. But there was guys that in my category that weren't anywhere near the bike riders that you guys are. And they had like, a brand new bike with all flipping Olin suspension on it and everything like
Yeah.
that. Is that a big thing in motorbike enduro?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it just depends on the person. Some people really like to chase the fact that something's going to fix the problem rather than going, trying to just get your elbows dirty and just, and then get down and dirty and get training and practicing repetitiveness of,
Yeah,
like a trials rider would. Um, yeah, I see it sometimes on training schools. Very, very rare on the training schools that I do, but guys are coming with all the bling bling, and but you know what, Nige? It does, as long as it makes them happy. It doesn't matter,
yeah,
does it?
no,
And
same
it's like, yeah, it's kind of when I go to an event when I was really trying to get to a level that I wanted to get to, and had literally nothing to kind of afford even the entries to go and do it. Luckily, some of the guys would give us free entries because we did a bit of a mess about and we were always doing all right at the events.
yeah,
But we'd literally be there. We'd have a moose in the back tire and an 18-inch wheel that we bought separate to the bike. And then after that, I don't think we had anything else like on the bike. I don't even think we'd run skid plates or anything. We just
yeah,
rode them. And yeah, and then me and a friend of mine, Cripsy, we'd always be bar to bar right in the beginning of the days of going to the cross country events. And we were just laughing and having a laugh. And luckily we'd got a good trials background. And if it rained, then we'd lap everybody on the whole field
right,
because we knew how to get through from doing the Scottish 6-day trial to the Scot trial or whatever.
yeah.
And yeah, it was just good times, good times. But yeah, it used to annoy me seeing these people with these fully set up bikes. But at that point, I didn't know what a fully set up bike was anyway.
Like, have you learned more about that stuff since,
Oh,
as you got older and and even retiring from the top level of the sport?
I think I know more now about the sport than I did when I was the best I'd ever been in the sport, if you know what I mean.
Same.
Um, yeah, understanding different things from the suspension to the, even just how to set a moose up. There's so many different ways for different conditions to have a moose set up, from your soft mooses already to drilling the soft moose to having the normal mooses, filling it, but then drilling it. So you've got it's madness. Gearing. I mean, gearing's such a vital thing for hard enduro. But everybody, I get so many messages because we have an online business, and I get so many messages. What gearing do you run? And I always say, well, I run this, but I like my power to be such a place, within the throttle. And
But for
they
them,
wouldn't. Yeah, they won't work for them. They'll hate it. They'll probably hate it because they'll always be stalling, maybe. But
yeah,
I know where my wrist is kind of calibrated to
yeah,
that gearing with that on that bike, and with them foot pegs in that position, and da, da, da,
yeah,
So yeah, it's so interesting. And same with suspension.
yeah. And
Yeah, you must get it with mountain biking.
yeah, I mean, obviously these days it doesn't really matter for me too much, but obviously I know how. I
But
know,
you still know when you've got a good setup, though, don't you?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think like you say, for different riding styles and stuff, you need slightly different setups. I see some people that I bump into that have bought a brand new bike from a shop, and it blows my mind that, that the shop basically must just. I'm not saying every shop, but a lot of shops just
Yeah,
sell them a 7 grand mountain bike or whatever, and they must
yeah,
even tell them how to set the suspension up or what the dials do or anything, and they've got like these crazy setups on a like
yeah,
7 grand mountain bike that just a couple of twiddles of your suspension and the thing would handle so much better, and what tire pressure to have in certain places, and the simple stuff that we know.
yeah. Yeah. Tire pressures for me are the best one. When you see people on the trails and it's skitting around, and
Yeah,
you're like, well, even good friends who I go riding with, bloody good riders, and they're always pumping the tires up too much, and
yeah.
they're like, well, I don't want to get a puncture. I'm like, yeah, well, do you not want to enjoy yourself?
I
Do you not
know.
want to like have some grip when you're going towards that sheer drop that we're going to do in a minute,
Yeah.
and some trust and consistency?
Um, and like and answer this one. This is a bit random on bikes, but in mountain biking, it's so specific on sizes of bikes.
Yeah,
In some brands now you've got extra small right up to double XL. And there's increments on the top tube, and now people talk about some brands have different front triangles for your sizes, but the rear triangles are the same length, and
uh-huh.
brands do specific rear ends to match the front end. So if you're on an XL, your rear end's got a longer chainstay than your size small or medium, which also makes sense because it's more
Yeah.
balanced, for where your feet are and your hands on the handlebars. But motorbikes are all the same size, other than
Yeah,
oh,
different capacity. Like a 200 beta would be a bit smaller than a 250 and 300 beta. It's a slightly different frame. But
realize
yeah,
that.
if
Okay.
yeah, and 125s are a little bit smaller as well, depending on the brand. Dependent on the brand as well. But you're absolutely right. If you're anything above 250,
Yeah.
then they're all the same size, roughly the same size bikes. And then you're just changing engine sizes, and obviously different from 4-stroke to 2-stroke. But we did do some stuff. You can lower the bike with suspension a little bit. Some people put some lowering bits into suspension, but
Yeah.
then in hard enduro, then you're going to catch your foot pegs more.
Yeah.
So especially if it's more rutted and things like that, then you will catch your feet a bit more on the ruts, and that's obviously pretty sketchy as well. And then we used to do something, because I'm not very tall, as you know, Nige.
Well, 6 foot,
Does
you told me when you
I,
first.
yeah, no, that's a lie. That was a lie. I was never been 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only got to 5'9", to be honest. You've heard it here first.
Unlike our good friend Nant Hale, who's 6 foot.
yeah, he obviously, yeah, medium, and he's 6 foot something, isn't he?
Wow.
Yeah, massive. Um, yeah, but it is weird. We used to do something with a subframe at the back that would lower the back part of the seat, but then we soon figured out that when we were climbing hills, you imagine we lower the seat a little bit like that, then the hill goes steeper, then that's even like that. So
Yeah.
you'd slide back more, and then obviously grippy seats get more and more popular and different things. And yeah, to sort of counteract that. But ultimately, I have my suspension. My bike's a 300B to the one I use most of the time. And I have my suspension working so plush in the top sort of chunk like that it's working so nice, and then it actually sits lower anyway in the travel, but
Okay.
it's still got the full travel, if you know what I mean. So yeah, and that's just something that I've been working with a friend of mine over the years to get it bang on to how I want it.
Yeah.
But if I was into racing still, I could get it so much better than I want than it is now,
Yeah. Okay.
and it's probably the best it's ever been.
And is technology like in mountain biking? Is the bikes better every year, or have they got to a kind of level now where they're pretty much the same each year, or is it still getting better and better?
I think from a factory perspective, I think your boys like your Billy, your Manny, your Sherco team, they they're getting factory engines and they're working on the power being super strong at certain points in the RPM and trying to keep that torque as much torque as they can in the engine without it spinning. Um, and I think that's probably just keeps going at the moment. But with suspension and things, obviously that's a bit personal preference. The biggest change was tyres. Over the last few years, tyres have really come on, especially the rear. Some people are raging about a soft front tyre, but you know, in the past we've been there and tried that, and it just rolls now. It doesn't go around the corner; it just rolls on the knobbles because they're so heavy, 100 kilos.
Yeah,
And
like the mountain bike tires. It's the taller knobbles and heavier weight.
yeah, yeah. So them knobbles after, and the carcass of the tire also has to be supportive of it. So something I always did to get, I used to run a smaller front mousse in the front tire,
Yeah.
just so I could get a little bit of them bits that you couldn't iron out with the suspension. Because if you make them too soft to iron out little tree roots and things like that, then there's no support and it's going to bottom out. So I would let the small detail stuff be taken up by the tire and the mousse, and then let the forks do the rest. So, and then obviously body position. That's You must see that in mountain biking. Somebody complaining about a bike not being set up well and the body position's like completely wrong,
Yeah.
and then they're blaming the bike, and it's like a good jockey will ride around the problems.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I know so little about motorbikes compared to mountain bikes, but I know about body position, when I'm riding, um,
yeah,
a bit about on the motorbikes, and that's what I enjoy doing at the moment. Going out, I'm always trying to learn how to ride my motorbike better. Like I've got to a point on my mountain bike where I don't push the level anymore like I did when I was
yeah,
younger, but I still ride at a decent level just within myself so that I'm not falling off all the time. Um,
yeah.
but I've
And
kind of
you've got to keep yourself active though, haven't you? To keep
yeah,
it, keep it. You want to keep as close to that level that you stopped at as possible for as long as possible, don't you?
yeah, and but like whereas when you're younger and you're not bothered about crashing all the time because you're trying to push your levels, then nowadays I want to not do that very much. So
Yeah.
on the motorbike, because I'm not very good on it, it's really exciting to try and learn new things and when I do something for the first time, like I'm buzzing. Do you know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's super exciting. But when with the bike, and I've asked you many times, and you always laugh at me and just tell me to get 300. And in my mind, I'm like, but I'm not good enough to have a 300. I don't need all that power. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, I bought as you know, and laughed at me. I bought the bike that I bought the other month, and the bike's it's way good enough for what I need. However,
Yeah.
did have a go on a guy up here's Beta 300. I think he's done motorbike enduro all his life. Um,
Yeah.
Pretty handy. And I had to go on his bike, and it actually did feel different. It felt, I don't know why, but the bike felt lower and longer than my bike, so it felt
Mm,
really stable and balanced. And the power in the 300 bike, which I imagined would be too fast for me, it was really easy to ride. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. The 300s works. The 300s work so good. And a motorbike's only as powerful as you twist the throttle. And if it's too powerful in that gear, change up one and it'll die off the power anyway. And then obviously if it's getting away from you, you can just hold the clutch a little bit and just keep it back, keep the power back in the engine there. So yeah. But the beta for me is like the one at the moment. It's the one I chose for myself. I've got a Cowie as well,
yeah,
but I've not been on that yet. That's just to do some other little projects, and I can't wait to see how that actually goes. But for me, the Beta is the one that's like an all rounder at the moment.
okay.
And me, you know how bad, like my dodgy shoulder. I can't steer anything with this left shoulder. Um, and actually, it's so light on the front end that it doesn't hurt. And as soon as I get on a KTM, you can even feel like the more quality of the way it's built and things like that, because the Beta's got some stuff that's not as quality around it. But
Got
overall, the
more
package is mega. Pardon?
so like the Beta's got a bit more flex in it.
No, I wouldn't say it's flex that I can feel. I'd just say it's just light at the front end because there's not as much stuff. And the way the engine sits in the frame, it
Right.
sits up and back and it keeps the weight more distributed in the middle to the back. Where the KTM, the engine's facing a little bit forward and everything looks like the weight's middle to front from the engine.
Okay.
And then the frame is stiffer on the KTMs, but I just noticed the weight being higher and more forward, and it absolutely ruins my shoulder immediately when I feel it. Just because of it's the flicking from left to right, that's what dinks it and pulling. Yeah, and it's just amazing with the different bikes. We said about the same size, but the way they handle and the way they feel,
Yeah.
they're completely different experiences.
Yeah. And is it like the mountain biking? Obviously, I think what ruined
Mm.
BMX back in the day, especially racing, and I think it's a bit like this in mountain biking now. There's like too many brands now, so
Yeah.
everything's diluted. So like there's when you've got such a big choice in mountain bike brands, everyone's competing against each other and fighting to get the sales. Whereas in the motorbiking, there's not as many brands, is there?
No.
So you know, I guess I look at watch some of the events now, and you see, obviously there's tons of KTM's and Huskies, and obviously now gas, but they're all really the same bike, pretty much, aren't they? There's a lot of beaters now. Um, and then obviously there's rumours that some of the Japanese brands are going to be coming into two strokes and stuff for enduro. Do you think that will happen now? KTM's in a bit of trouble. How do you see that all going?
I mean, if the Japanese brands come back into off road like they did in the past, then it would be so good for the sports. From motocross to enduro GP to hard enduro. Yeah, I think it would be really good, and even the super enduro,
Yeah,
because that super enduro can sort of cater for any bike. You can just set it up for that particular discipline. Where hard enduro is a bit different. It is easier on a two-stroke, to do most of the hard enduros. Some hard enduros we raced four strokes back in the day at the British Extremes when they were multi-lap, because
yeah.
you could just hang off it on a 250F and just nail its hat on everywhere and literally just hang off the clutch, and you still have enough. You'd have like super stability between the fast stuffs and in the ruts.
So is
But then
it
you go,
for myself and people that don't know, is a four stroke more stable? Is it when you go in when you going?
I would say so. I would say so. Yeah, yeah. I would say it's more stable, more predictable. But then because of the way the torque's delivered on a four stroke, yeah, they've got so much torque bottom end that they'll spin up more in slipperier conditions. So that's when you hear a more experienced rider really revving it, they're
Yeah.
probably hanging on the clutch to keep the torque back in the engine a bit,
Right.
to sort of keep the power down on the ground and reduce the spin, but keep the drive, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd just like to see him come back, and that's why I sort of had the chance to get this Cowie and make it up. And I want to take it to a muscle track actually, just to run it in and bed everything in a bit. But then I will be putting it into some sort of hard enduros just in the UK, and maybe some sprints or a time card or something, and just see how it goes. Because you know,
Well,
for
that
me
makes,
over the years, the Jack bikes have always been probably the most stable bikes,
yeah.
and that equally reminded me of when I got the Beta. It reminded me of my old CR250
Right.
from sort
Okay.
of '07. Yeah,
And you know what? Obviously, Johnny Walker's on Triumph,
yeah,
do a two-stroke at the moment. I don't know if that's something they'll look into in the future, but uh, you know, what did he come seventh or eighth at the
yeah. It was a mega ride. And when I felt the first thing you do at a finish line is just compare like how soft the mousses are in the tires, in the rear tire certainly. And Johnny's was like way, way, way too hard. So he obviously worked even harder than he should have done.
why,
And he was on the 4-stroke. Pardon?
why would he have had two harder mooses?
Well, he's probably because he's doing. He knows obviously a lot about hard enduro. He knows how to set a bike up. He knows what he's looking for. But I think he just was worried that going too soft was going to like put him in a bad place for the start and all the fast stuff.
Right.
And obviously, when no matter which moose brand it is, they all balloon up a touch as well. So they've gone super small. It was red hot in the beginning of the race, and they've all ballooned up a bit. And then as the mooses deteriorate through the race,
Yeah.
then then they're at the perfect consistency and size for them really hard sections you saw at the end.
Right. And so
Yeah,
obviously the start of the race is flat out, and you know Billy
yeah,
got an amazing start, and you know for spectators that with excitement, that's exciting that first part of the race.
yeah,
You know, then obviously people that are watching the event, it's a bit like the downhill. If you know how if you ride the bikes yourself, you can tell how hard things are on the TV.
yeah,
If you don't ride yourself, you don't understand that. So it's sometimes things that are exciting to us to see and go, wow, did you see that? To somebody else, it might not be that exciting because it's slow and it looks kind of a bit, you know, like for instance,
yeah,
Billy Bolt going through Carl's diner and he just wobbles over on the bike and falls in
yeah.
the hole. You know, to somebody that isn't into bikes, they would think, what's going on here? You know, whereas the first bit looks unreal, doesn't it? How fast they're going and it's super exciting. Um, but how important in the races is Carl's diner? Obviously, if you can't get through that well, there's no chance of winning the race, is there?
No, that's where you can save the most energy. You
Yeah,
know, the first part out of the quarry, you're absolutely right. It's absolutely flat out. And you get onto the little gravel roads here and there, and you're flipping spinning that tire as much as you can. You know, you're making some dust, but you're trying to make double the amount of dust. When you come into the braking zones, you're flipping skidding that back tire as hard as you can,
just
just so you know that to
the
make
other
dust, yeah, just do whatever you can to slow everybody down behind you a bit.
time.
Just give yourself more breathing room. But I've never whole shot that one. I've been in the top 5 into that bit, and it's like it's wild. You ride so hard into dust that you can't see, and you're like, oh no, I know it's somewhere around here.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's something. And you're like, but no, when you get further on into the race, and it all calms down a bit and spreads out a bit, yeah, you're right. It's somehow it doesn't show how good these riders are, does it? Until you see them firing up a big hill climb later on,
Yeah,
and yeah, it needs the dynamic and the speed.
yeah,
But yeah, Billy needs to also conserve some energy in Carl's diner as well.
yeah, yeah. So, and then obviously the like you've just said, obviously in Super Enduro, Billy won pretty much every race.
Yeah,
Was he on a 354 stroke? Was he for
yeah,
that?
yeah. 354 stroke.
And what did Johnny ride in
So
it?
Johnny rode Triumph's new version of the enduro version,
Yeah.
and he rode a 250,
So
254 stroke.
why would you not choose the forfeit? Because Triumph haven't got a three.
So the problem with four strokes is that when you let's say you want to bridge a gap between two rocks,
Yeah.
yeah, the four stroke, every four stroke I've ever ridden has always wanted to push forward on the clutch, even though the clutch is in and disengaged. It always gives this feel. And whether it's the rolling mass of the engine, because there's more weight into the engine than a two stroke, just when you go gas on, gas off,
Yeah.
and flywheel weights to keep things rolling round and things like that. Maybe it's just that, or maybe it's just the torque that I said, and the clutch doesn't just quite disengage like it should.
Right.
That's the feeling it gives me anyway. But I've never been lucky enough to have a team around me to do stuff. I've just got to think about it as like a truck mechanic from Chorley. Just
Yeah.
how would I fix that problem if it was on a truck? So keep it simple, and that's the reason generally why Johnny wouldn't have gone for a 450, because the 250 would do it less.
Okay, got you. Would
Yeah, and the 450 would have been a handful. A 450 would have been a handful on them climbs towards the end, especially if you were tired from what you'd done.
but if you were fresh, a 450 would get up the climbs easier, would
Yeah,
it?
yeah, probably. As long as you get the power on the ground,
Yeah.
as long as you can put the power on the ground controlled, then yeah, then it's going to go up. Like I had a 500 Husky for a while, and that thing used to eat hill climbs.
Yeah.
But then you'd have a tricky approach on the hill climb, and it would struggle its brains off. But if you could open it up, even with a short run up or whatever, it'd just go so hard at the hill climb. A
Right.
mega machine.
Right. And so do you, for instance, if Manny or Billy had rode I thought
Good
the
question.
stroke version of their brands, would they still been able to win the race, do you think, or not?
That'd be a really good one. I don't know. I think if you just judge it on Manny's performance, I think I don't think he would be as good on a four-stroke. No,
Okay.
I don't. But for sure, he can still finish on one,
Okay.
and for sure, Manny would have been in the top three
Okay.
on it.
And fair enough. And then same question for the Super Enduro, because Billy looks that much better than the other people at the moment.
Yeah,
If Billy rode a 302 stroke for the indoor, would he still win on that?
yeah. I reckon Billy could still win in a two-stroke. I think he'd have to ride the bike a bit harder, because obviously the one of the big reasons he uses the four-stroke is because of the pop out of the corners. So it's the way it just puts the power down instant and hard, and that's why you see Billy doing the bigger features and the bigger gaps, because that's why you can do it. And then you see Ashton Brightmore riding smoother with, I'm not going to say better timing because Billy's the man, obviously, but it's the way he carries the speed and then still gets the timing right to do some of the big features as well.
Yeah.
But the two strokes are more nimble in some parts. So Billy has to sometimes take, let's say, like a four-stroke line, and then the others would be a bit faster on a certain section, but Billy would open a key feature
And pull away.
and pull away. That's where he'll gap them.
And would those younger lads, the Brightmore brothers, would why do they choose
I
the
think I think it's just team. I think it's just team preference and what they can get hold of. It's a big team, the X-Script team, but
they're not
everything's gonna. Yeah, they're not factory. They can get some kind of factory support with suspension, I think. But yeah, other than that, it's just a private team, and I would say that their engines are pretty much stock.
wow.
So yeah, maybe with a head change. I don't think they're going to go too far into it. But yeah, I've never really asked them if they've tuned the engines, because that 302 stroke engine is so powerful anyway.
Right.
If you want it, it's all there.
Okay. And is is do they have to do they have their engines set up differently to say racing a British Extreme? Like, do they have to have the power come in a lot earlier to do those features on a two-stroke?
I'd say again with just like the pop, you'd just want something to spool up faster, so you'd want it to spin like yeah, and you
Yeah.
just dump the clutch, drive it through the clutch. So you'd probably want less of a flywheel weight in the super enduros than having a bigger flywheel weight for the outdoor stuff to make more torque, if you will.
And what does the flywheel weight do? I don't even know what that is myself.
It just you make the heavier flywheel, so it would just make it spin more and make more rolling mass. So then it's harder to stall it, and then obviously that creates the torque, and then the torque always for hard enduro you always want it to come from the bottom end of the power, not on the top.
I see. Where
Uh,
motocross bikes, you want them to be a lot of
Spin it like yeah,
okay,
yeah, and that's flat four strokes have a bigger rolling mass anyway of engine, and that's why there's so much more planted and less twitchy than a two stroke. And you see more of the motocross riders since the guys in motocross went all four stroke. Then I would say that motocross probably moved on in speed, but
yeah,
but the thing is, it also brought a certain like level that everybody could ride at, if you will.
yeah,
Where a two stroke, good riders would be here,
yeah.
and then there'd be a unique group of really fast two-stroke riders, and then there'd be another super fast group of two-stroke riders. But now the four-stroke levels like this, or like there's a curve at the end,
Yeah, got you.
of really good riders. So it's a lot harder to ride a two-stroke fast because you need to keep the power in the right place.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And what with the super enduro versus the outdoor extreme enduro, what is with the brands and the teams, what do you think they put the most effort into? Do the teams put a lot of effort into the super enduro because it's on the TV and stuff, or are they putting
Mm.
a lot of effort into? I guess there's more people buying bikes that are doing just the extreme stuff that Medium Ant is doing all the time now. Going with you, that obviously
Yeah,
seems to be growing and growing to me, and there seems to be a lot of people buying the bikes. Does the motorbike industry, get behind that?
yeah, probably not enough, but they can only do as much as they can, I suppose. As well, everybody's got the reasons for it, and I would say that the biggest popular thing is going out riding in the forest with your friends, or meeting up at a quarry like Werndu or something like that, and just going, seeing who can get up the biggest hill climb or who can ride the riverbed the most times before they fall over,
Yeah,
and that kind of thing. Just generally going out having a laugh, which is probably what you see most up at the golfy.
yeah,
You see people just going out in big groups, having a laugh, and then they get back to work the next week and try and do it again the following weekend.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that if you compared it from the energy that the team would put into from super enduro to the outdoors, I think more energy goes into the outdoors because more people can relate to it.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And what's the difference in the different classes in the enduro GPs? You've got you've got there's a 250 and under class, isn't there? Like what
Yeah.
Garcia wins.
Yeah.
And there's up to 450s, is there? Is that the
Yeah. That's E2.
two? And then
Yeah, E1 and then E2 and then E3. And so E3 is the sort of bigger bike class where you've got anything above 252 stroke.
yeah.
So that's that in two strokes. But then in the four strokes, it's anything above 450. And then that sort of rounds up the E3 class.
So which is the premier class?
So the premier class is what they call is like the overall. So they score points for each class,
Yeah.
and then there's points for the overall day as well. So
So
yeah, it's kind of like more like the prestige of winning the overall day, the fastest time overall.
and is that so? Am I watching it incorrectly that Joseph Garcia, who was last year's #1, and they say he's the fastest in the world. But he's on a 250.
Yeah, he's on a 250. Yeah,
And does he beat all the guys on the bigger bikes?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But
And
that guy's special. I followed him on the prologue at Erzberg.
so fast, isn't he?
He's unreal. He's unreal.
I was watching it, um this year and watching a lot of the highlights from last year. They have some really good things on YouTube nowadays, don't
Yeah,
they? You can watch like all the highlights of the previous year and stuff, which is amazing. And some of the speed he was going, it was next level.
yeah. And he has some big moments, but then he just doesn't seem to let off the throttle anyway.
Off.
Hell
So
of a character as well. He's such a character. He does a lot of like cross country mountain biking for training.
okay, he
Yeah,
looks.
he's always yeah. His legs are flipping. He's only a small guy, but his legs are massive. He's a flipping. He's a right lad though. He's a good lad. Yeah.
Legs. So and why does he ride the 250 then? Is that like a spot as a KTM thing or what? I don't quite understand, why you would be in
I
it.
don't know. I don't know. It's either his personal preference or I'm not sure if he's done a season on the 350 as well once, but
So
um,
you'd be an E2.
he would be yeah, he would be an E2 then. Yeah, yeah.
And so for those disciplines, is the two-stroke bikes faster and better for that, like motocross, or is it
It
quite
would, yeah, it would definitely be down to per race, per country, per stop on the calendar. Sometimes it would be a two-stroke day. And conditions as well. One place could be like the one at Portugal. I would say a two-stroke would have gone better at Portugal because it was a little bit more well, certainly one of the special tests was more towards hard enduro, and I
yeah, they
would
have
say
some
that
mad
yeah, they
corners.
have some gnarly ones now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but he can do it all.
yeah, he can. He actually did the first full true season of hard enduro, and yeah, Joseph even finished Erzberg as well,
Oh,
and
okay.
Romaniacs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
okay, I think we're going to have to split this into two parts, guys, because me and Paul are having way too much fun here chatting away like two old ladies. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed this week, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.